Deep inside the forest, where even light struggled to reach, an ancient fortress-like mansion stood on a hill. Its walls, rusted and moss-covered with time, carried centuries of history. But tonight, the castle felt unusually alive. The reason was a grand event: Timothy's wedding. Timothy, the son of an old landlord family, was the center of attention on his wedding day. The great hall of the castle was filled with lights, long tables overflowing with food, and guests from different cities laughing and chatting. The family who lived in the castle had invited their extended relatives and a few prominent townsfolk, determined to make this marriage a memorable occasion. The balconies of the castle glittered with colorful lanterns. Servants moved among the crowd, offering wine and sweets. Gentle music echoed through the hall, and every guest believed this night would be remembered as a golden chapter in the castle's history. Yet none of them knew that this night would soon be marked by blood and terror. In the middle of the celebration, a piercing scream echoed from within the castle's inner chambers. The music and laughter halted instantly. Fear spread like a shadow. Several guests and family members rushed toward the source of the sound. When they entered one of the rooms, they froze in shock. On the floor lay the body of a young guest. His clothes were soaked in blood, deep stab wounds carved across his body. The window was shut, the door locked from the inside. No one could understand how it had happened. The master of the castle quickly ordered the gates sealed. All guests were gathered in the main hall, ensuring no one could leave. The air filled with whispers and trembling eyes. Everyone began to look at one another, as though the killer might be standing right among them. Timothy, only moments ago lost in his wedding joy, now trembled with dread. Happiness had drained from his face, replaced by sheer horror. Inside his mind, a storm brewed. Why would anyone do this? Was it vengeance against the family? Or were the old legends of the castle now coming true? Night deepened. The corridors of the castle fell silent, the kind of silence that pressed against the chest. Candles in the hall flickered, then one by one extinguished, as if unseen hands were smothering them. Outside, the wind howled through the forest, its voice blending with the creeping fear inside. An elderly woman among the guests, a distant relative of the family, whispered, "I warned you. This castle is cursed. Spirits dwell within its walls. Tonight, they have awakened people scolded her for speaking such things. But in their hearts, unease gnawed at them. For centuries, stories had swirled about this place, tales that its foundations were laid upon blood. And tonight, those stories seemed dangerously close to reality. When the clock struck midnight, another sound tore through the silence, a heavy crash, like something massive falling. Guests clung to each other in terror. A few brave relatives ran down the corridor. There, beneath a towering pillar, lay another guest, crushed, lifeless. This time he had been pushed from above. Panic surged. No one doubted it now. The killer was among them. Someone had turned a night of joy into a night of vengeance. The hall was gripped in silence. Children whimpered, women prayed in hushed voices, and the men stared at one another with suspicion and fear. The castle's tall windows opened toward the endless forest, where darkness reigned, and the eerie calls of unseen birds added to the dread. Timothy's father urged everyone to stay together, to give the killer no opportunity. But in the pit of every heart lay the same terrifying thought. What if the killer was one of those standing right here? The clock struck again, each chime echoing like a warning. The night grew heavier, darker, and a silence spread through the castle that felt like the calm before a storm. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. Another body could fall at any moment. The heavy moments of the night dragged on, cutting into one another. The flame of wedding joy had been extinguished, and now every room was filled with the cold wave of fear. From the castle walls came ancient whispers, as if a centuries-old tale had come alive and was now breathing. The guests were gathered in the great hall. A few servants guarded every door so that no one could escape. Yet even so, everyone's eyes had turned into sharp blades of suspicion, piercing one another. In every guest's mind circled the same question: who is the killer? And who will be the next victim? On Timothy's face lay not only fear, but also shame. This night was supposed to be his wedding night, yet now it had become a blood-soaked memory. He said to his father, "This cannot be a coincidence. Someone is deliberately killing us." The old father closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and replied, "My son, this castle is centuries old. Its foundations were laid in blood. Perhaps that very blood is now demanding its due from us." At his words, the hearts of those present trembled even more. Yet some of the younger guests refused to accept such an explanation. They claimed this was the work of a human being, not shadows or spirits. But whatever the truth was, fear weighed equally on all. In the second watch of the night, another scream shook the castle. This time the sound came from the kitchen. When people rushed there, they found the body of a maid. Her neck was twisted at an unnatural angle, as though someone had snapped it with immense force. Not a single drop of blood had spilled onto the floor. Now the matter had become even more mysterious. First, stabbing with a knife, then crushed beneath a pillar, and now a broken neck. Each time, the method was different, as though the killer was deliberately changing tactics to hide his true identity. Timothy gathered his courage and declared, "We will all stay together. Whoever separates will fall into the jaws of death. The killer wants us to scatter. We must not give him that chance." The guests clung to one another. Yet the castle's cold air and the shadows cast upon its walls slowly began to erode their courage. At that moment, a young girl, Timothy's cousin, suddenly spoke. "I have heard many times that in the northern wing of this castle lies a locked room, forbidden to all. Perhaps the key to our questions is hidden there. At first, everyone rejected the idea. But as fear grew, a few brave ones finally agreed to go. Torches in hand, they crossed the long corridors and reached the oldest part of the castle. There indeed stood a heavy wooden door, secured with a rusted lock. When they broke the lock and opened the door, the air inside was foul and suffocating. Within the room lay old portraits, shattered mirrors, and bones scattered across the floor. On the wall, written in blood, was a chilling sentence. "This land is ours. You must all leave." In one corner lay an old diary. It contained the history of the castle's founding family. According to it, centuries ago, the castle had been built during a war, with the blood of enemies. Prisoners were locked here, killed, and their bodies buried beneath the walls. This cruelty had continued for generations. On the last page of the diary, it was written, "What we sowed then, the time has come to reap. Our future generations will not escape this curse." Reading this drained the blood from everyone's faces. The horrific deaths of tonight were, it seemed, the fruit of that very curse. When this secret was revealed back in the hall, chaos broke out among the guests. Some believed that indeed restless spirits roamed the castle. Others suspected that someone from the family was using this story to eliminate their enemies. Suspicious eyes now turned toward Timothy and his father. After all, the castle belonged to them. If any hidden truth existed, surely they would know. Timothy defended himself. "I too have learned all of this only tonight. I swear to God, if the killer is among us, then he is our enemy, not our kin." But his words did little to calm anyone's hearts. The dark night of terror stripped everyone of reason. Outside, the sky was covered with thick clouds. With thunder and lightning, the rain began. Drops dripping from the windows sounded like the footsteps of death. Suddenly, a young boy who had gone to the bathroom did not return. When people searched for him, they found his body sprawled on the stairs. This time his flesh was covered in strange marks, as though someone had clawed at him with iron talons. Now everyone was convinced. This could not be a human. This was some unseen, powerful force, striking in a different way each time. All night the guests remained awake. Children clung to their mothers, while the men searched desperately for weapons. But every weapon in the castle was either rusted or useless. Timothy resolved that at dawn he would take everyone and leave. But the question was, who would live? The rain had stopped, but the atmosphere inside the castle grew even heavier with fear. People now looked at one another with suspicion. Every guest had the same doubt in their heart, that perhaps the killer was one of them, someone pretending to be innocent while secretly taking lives one by one. Timothy's heartbeat grew faster. He was certain that if no decision was made by morning, the castle would swallow them all. Some guests tried to leave the castle. They moved toward the massive doors, but when they tried to open them, they discovered they were sealed from the inside, as if someone had locked them with great force. All doors and windows were tested, but there was no way out. Everyone now understood that they had fallen into a trap. The night grew heavier. In every corridor, the darkness thickened. Torches began to go out, and the gusts of wind carried not only cold but strange whispers. Some women began to cry. Children clung tightly to their mothers. Timothy tried to encourage everyone, but his own legs trembled. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the southern wing of the castle. When people rushed there, they found another guest lying dead on the floor. This time, bloody words were carved across his chest. "This is not your home." The sight shook everyone to the core. Now they were convinced this was not the work of human hands, but rather an ancient vengeance tied to the walls of the castle itself. For a moment, everyone stood silently in the hall. Then a young girl, Hannah, spoke. "If we don't uncover the foundation of this castle, we will never leave alive." Her words gave some courage, and with Timothy leading, a group of them moved toward the basement. The rest, paralyzed with fear, stayed behind. The basement was damp and reeked of decay. Old moisture dripped from the walls, and bones lay scattered across the floor. In one corner hung a large iron chain, rusted and stained with old blood. Their steps grew slower and slower, but their hearts pounded like they were caught in a giant fist. Suddenly, a stone slab shifted, revealing a hidden passage. In the dim light of the torch, they saw a long tunnel leading deep beneath the castle. Timothy stepped forward and entered. As they descended, the air grew heavier still. There they found an ancient chamber, its walls carved with strange symbols. In the center stood a stone arch adorned with human skulls. At the middle of the chamber lay a massive book, its pages blackened with age. When Timothy opened it, he read that this castle had once been a sacrificial ground where humans were slaughtered and their blood used to feed the land. Over time, those restless spirits had turned the castle into their eternal prison. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the chamber and the torch went out. In the darkness, they heard the footsteps of something heavy approaching. Breathing became impossible. Then a terrifying shadow emerged. Its ancient garments flowed as it moved, its eyes glowing like burning coals. Slowly, it drew closer. Some fell to the floor, others screamed in terror. Timothy still held the book. He flipped through the pages quickly. On one of them, it was written, "The only way to end these spirits is for the heir of the family to offer his own life." Timothy looked at everyone around him for a moment. Fear and courage both flickered in his eyes. He handed the book to Hannah and said, "If I don't survive, take this book and escape. Tell the world the secret of this castle." Then he stepped toward the shadow and shouted, "If it's blood you want, take mine. I am the heir of this family." The shadow paused for a moment. Then it spread its arms wide and wrapped Timothy in its darkness. Everyone watched as Timothy's body began to glow with a strange light. His scream echoed through every corner of the castle. And then, silence. When their eyes adjusted, the shadow was gone. The castle shook briefly, then fell completely still. The doors and windows opened on their own. Hannah clutched the book tightly to her chest. The remaining guests looked at each other. They all knew that Timothy had sacrificed himself to save them. The first rays of morning sunlight entered through the castle's broken windows. The place was now quiet, but the burden of centuries-old curses still clung to its walls. The guests left one by one, yet a single question remained in their hearts. Was the curse truly gone? Or would the castle one day rise again to claim its due?